Hey, this is Mike from Monkey Fab Garage here today to talk about my T4 Divided collector, how to assemble that, how to prep it, and get it ready. So we're just doing a video today. Here's the kit you get when you order the T4 Divided kit. You get the flange, which is normal T4 flange, and you get the two 16 gauge tubes. They've already been squared out the bottom, so I'll show you how to get that ready to go. So it doesn't really matter, stainless steel or mild steel, you get the same deal. The ends are flared out, so if you have a 2.25, a 2 1/4 inch, you can just stick it on top of there and butt weld it. It's a little bit narrower. The 2.25 is a little bit narrower than the flare there. So it fits in there pretty well, and or you can use 2 1/2, and that fits there. And it's a little bit of a big fit, so it fits a little bit on the outer side of that, but it's going to make it so you can, hey, you know what, if you're running mild steel, you can just TIG weld a bead right around that, or not TIG weld, MIG weld a bead right around that, or TIG weld, use that little overlapping bit for filler, and you'll be good to go. So anyway, like I said, here's the kit, and I'm going to show you what I do to get it all prepped up and weld, and a couple of the tricks that I use to get it all together. Alright, so when you get the kit, like I said, the ends are going to be formed, and they're going to fit right on top of the flange. So it's a really narrow flange. You have to use 2-inch pipe to get it to form and fit well, and actually you could probably go a little bit smaller than 2-inch, but the 2-inch works well. It makes it fit to where it sits directly over the port, and that's going to line up like that when we're all ready, get it all done. So what we have to do is we have to finish these off, because they come like pre-bent, but hey, there's no way to get them on there. You see that? It's just, it's not going to happen. So what I do is I take and I trim the back sides of these off a little bit, give it a little bit of a V shape, and that helps me get in there the center with the tungsten. And that's pretty easy. I'll show you what I do. Is I grab a dial caliper, and I open it up, zero it out, open it up to 30 thousandths. So you see that's not exactly 30 thousandths, but it's pretty close. So 30 thousandths where I open it up to, and I find the back. I'm going to go ahead and put the seam in the middle, just because that's the way I do it. It's my own little thing. I'm not sure if it helps or anything, but I'm going to go ahead and mark this. I'm going to take my Sharpie, and I'm just going to mark that mark at 30 thousandths on both of these. And then I'm just going to make a straight line between those. Sharpie's getting kind of dull. And I'm going to run it down to the corners, so it'll be nice and angled. And that's what I'm going to have. I'm going to have it just rolling down to the corner, back right there, and then that, and all that area that's underneath that line I'm going to grind off. Okay, so I ran these over the belt sander and just smooth them out, so get a nice flat edge. And what we're going to do is should be able to see how these are going to fit now on this flange. So it's just going to fit just like that. But of course, running it over on the belt sander left a bunch of metal inside, and I could probably just peel that out, but I'm going to take a die grinder and run it on the inside real quick, just to clean that off, and then we'll take a little sander, a little sanding wheel, and just run around the outside to make sure I got clean metal to weld. And once I do that, those will be ready to weld. So I'm going to do that real quick. Okay, so they're just like that. We are ready to weld, and I'm just going to check inside the port to make sure everything is still lining up well. And looks like I squeezed it just a little bit somehow in this direction. So I'm just going to go throw this on the vise and give it a little quick squish in, and that'll probably correct it. And it did. So I'm gonna grab the camera so you can see what I'm seeing. Okay, so there's the runners sitting down on the flange. You see the spacing between there. That's what we got to work with. And on the inside, has good lineup. There's a little bit of overlap on there, but that's no big deal. That's something we can just reach in there with a die grinder and smooth out once we get done. You got to go ahead and prep the flange. So I'm going to hit it really quick with a green bristle wheel and make sure that I get it down to shiny bright metal. We're ready to go, and next time you see, we'll be over at my welder, and I'll talk about how. And I'm about to get ready to weld this up. So I wipe everything down with acetone. That's not the block. This block. And you use lots of it because you want the surface clean when you go to weld. You know, the cleaner it is, the better weld you're going to get. So I wipe it down inside and outside, set it aside, wipe my flange down all around where I'm going to make the weld and the bottom of it. And then I wipe my welding surface down too. Less little contaminants and stuff to worry about. So there we go. Everything's wiped down. We'll talk real quick about what I'm going to use to weld this up. And so what I got is a block that I bolt my flange down to, and that's going to keep it from distorting once the heat gets into it and starts pulling, doing whatever, you know, heat does and metal does. I'm going to use a number 20 flex head torch. with the number 8 gas lens, 3/32 tungsten. Doesn't really matter on when you're doing metal, steel, stainless steel. I really haven't seen much of a difference in the tungstens, so I just use it thoriated. If I had lanthanated, I'd use that, or any other kind, doesn't really matter. I do have a monster nozzle, which is going to help me stick my tungsten way out when it comes time to reach down in between those two runners and make that bead in there. And I have a TIG finger from Jody that helps me keep steady. It's the ABCs of welding, always be comfortable. And that's about it for my equipment. The welders is a HTP welding unit, and I'm going to be running 100 amps today to do this. The rod I'm going to be using, filler rod, is going to be mostly 045 thickness, ER70S. I think it's 6 or 3 or 2 or something, but it's just regular, your regular filler wire. I'm going to use some 035 to run a real thin, tall bead on the inside of this runner. That's going to work for me to take my heat and wash that metal in and reach the inside of that joint without having to really mess around with too much feeding filler when I go to do that last runner on the inside. And then I'm going to use a bit of a 1/16. So when I go to make that run on the inside and I'm all cramped up in there and I'm pushing a lot of heat in between those two tubes, it's not going to blow out like if I used a 035 or 045. I'm going to actually be able to reach down there into the puddle and as I modulate it with my foot and make that bead. So those are the fillers we'll be using, and that's all the equipment. So, while I'm doing this, I'm going to talk about some stuff. So if I was doing stainless steel instead of mild steel, I'd be using the exact same procedure. I'd be doing the exact same stuff, except when I go to weld the runners on, I would back purge, and that's why this block is got this little fitting on here, so you can hook hose to it and then back argon to the back of the weld, and that will back purge your so you get nice clean welds and the sugar on, no contamination, and that's what you want. So I'm not going to make a video for stainless because it really is the exact same thing, except I'll probably turn the heat down 10% on these joints, and I'd use stainless filler. But other than that, back purge, and I'd throw a little tin foil on top of those things when I had them on there and poke a hole in it, and back purge probably 10 CFM. That'd be it. So that's all I wanted to say about the stainless. So my flange is on my block, and I'm going to snug it down with the my wrench real quick. Like I said before, it doesn't really matter what bolts you have, but if you got coated ones, there's a chance that stuff could cook off and you end up breathing it, and that's just no good. So I use stainless bolts, but they're pretty well broken in now. But at first I used to use some thread anti-seize on there, because if you ever had stainless steel nuts and stainless steel bolts, they have a tendency to guard up when you tighten them down real tight. But these are well broken in, so I don't really mess with it anymore. They don't give me any trouble, so hey, if they did galled up, I just take my grinder out and cut them off. So that's it. So it's important you make sure that you do a last checkup to make sure that these runners are lining up on these ports that they're sitting on really well, because as you're grinding on it or manipulating it, or as they get transported through the mill, they can get smashed a little bit, or metal just has a natural bit of springiness to it. So you want to make sure that they're fitting up, they're sitting on there really well, and before you get started, because once you get it all tacked up and start running beads, that's how it's going on. So check it, make sure the fitment's good. And make your adjustments before you start welding. So it's just I use a pony clamp. I use a bit of copper. It's copper angle. It's 1/16 thickness, and I cut it in half and doubled it up, and that's going to work as a heat sink. It's also going to help trap argon in the back, and it's going to give you something to weld to. So, which are all important and good things. And you can see there, just the copper right up to the end. And I'm just going to run a bunch of beads right here with that 035 filler. I'm going to go about 70 amps, 50 pulses per second. I'm also going to use the foot pedal to kind of throttle it on and off as I feed filler wire. And what I want is I just want to end with a big stack of beads right here. It should have, you know, marginally penetrated to the base metal there. But when I stick this on to the flange and I reach down there with my tungsten, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash that down to the root of the joint and over onto the other side. And that's when I'm going to really hit it with a lot of heat and make sure that it's getting in there. But for now, what I want to do is I just want to stack beads. Okay, so got my number 8 gas lens on, and the settings are, just like I said, 70 amp, 50 pulses per second. I'm going to be throttling this with my foot as well. Just kind of pump some heat as I go along. And I'm just going to be feeding this filler in there at a pretty good clip. So you'll be able to see that, and just go ahead and make a test pass. You know, the ABCs of welding always be comfortable. I got my post way too high. Alright, so there's the first pass. Like I said, it's just a real cold, tall bead. I'm going to go ahead and make another pass like that on top of that. And probably just use up the rest of this filler rod. Alright, so that's done, and gonna set this aside, let it cool down is what I usually do. And you see, it just looks like I got a big slug on there, and that's exactly what I want. So I'm going to go in there with the heat and wash that all in with the tungsten when I go to that center pass. So set that aside, and we're going to start working on the flange now. Alright, so I got the flange set on top of there, and I'm going to go ahead and tack it in place. And I have it set real well. I kind of manipulate it around, and what I basically look for with this pipe, this tube on this flange, is just for it to barely fit all the way around. So if I go too far back, I'm going to have a gap there. If I go too far forward, I'm going to have a gap on the back side. I'm looking for that almost perfect fit is what I want, which means it's just barely covering in all areas. And once I get that, it looks good. I just want to go ahead and tack it. So I'm going to take it off pulse. I'm going to crank it up to 100 amps. And
ready to tack it up.
Alright, so I got 2 tacks on the opposing corners, and I'm just going to go ahead and run my first bead on the inside here. So I don't want to, I'm not going to just, you know, murder it with heat. I'm just going to go in there, and I want kind of a real fine bead ran in there. Because you saw that huge bead I put on that other runner. That's going to be plenty of material for me to go down there with the tungsten and wash it back and forth on either side and get it down there into that, to the root of that 3/8 flange. So I just want to make sure I'm sewing it in. So I'm just going to go in there. I'm not going to use a lot of heat, and I'm going to mostly angle that heat at the base and let the heat just wash it up. So that's what I got, and I just ran that bead not real high at all and a bit on the colder side. So now I'm going to run the outsides all the way around that, and I'm going to be laying on the heat. I'm going to be filling running a lot of filler in there, because I like to have kind of a thick bead around there in case you want to, you know, die grind or port it out a little bit. There's some extra meat on there for it to catch on to. So that's what we'll do right now. So you probably see some smoke coming off right now. That's actually my gloves. So I had a tendency to want to get in there too close to the tungsten, but hey, maybe enough pain and I'll eventually learn. Yeah, that sucker is starting to get a lot of heat in it. And that's one pass all the way around. So I'll zoom in here. And so that's our first pass and only pass on this runner. So that runner is good to go. And hey, that was the easy part. Okay, so that runner's on there. And now what we got to do is get the other runner ready, which still is kind of warm. But I'm going to pull that clamp off of there and the piece of copper that I used to back it. And I got that really tall bead on there. I'm just going to test fit it. That bead is like pretty tall, so I'm going to have to grind that down quite a bit. I'm going to run a sander over this anyway to clean all that oxidation off of there before I weld it. And I'm also going to hit it with a wire brush. But I usually go too tall, and the idea is that when I dress it back with the sanding disc, then I get clean, bright, shiny metal to weld. And it's always easier to take a little bit of that metal off as opposed to try to go back and put it on. So you can see it sitting there, and that bead is just a bit too tall. So I'm going to go there and dress it down, wash it back and forth, and as I go up, and then I'm going to do the same thing, come back down. So it's actually going to end up running 2 passes on the inside of that, and it's going to wash down just fine. It took me a couple tries, so I went over there and I ground it down to it was all shiny metal, and hit it with the brush and took all the oxidation off. And then I came back and I test fitted it, and it was bumping into the beads on the other side of the inside where the two meet. And so not a big deal. Just went back there and dressed it down a little bit more, and put it on there, and I got a pretty good fit up. So I'm just going to go ahead and tack it to keep that where I want it and keep it from moving around on me. I need a bigger table. Okay, so we're tacked up and ready to go, and give you a look. I hope it's focusing. It looks like it is. So the idea now is we're going to go ahead and back this up. We'll throw some aluminum on the back of this thing. I'm going to use these little clamps that I made out of some filler wire. Bent up some 035 filler wire, and they just spring on, and it helps hold my aluminum in place. like I said, doing stainless would be the exact same thing. I got these little cups that I use to put on the top there when I'm doing stainless, and they just got a little hole punched out in the top, and that keeps all my argon inside to keep the inside keep it with a nice back purge on it. So that's it. We got aluminum backed up here, and I'm going to tilt this up on a fixture, and I'm going to run my tungsten down inside here, and this aluminum is going to trap a bunch of argon in there to give me a clean weld. I'm going to do 3 things real quick. I'm going to turn my post flow, my pre-flow up to full second, so I get a lot of argon in there before I even start welding. I'm going to change out to a monster nozzle on my gas lens, and while I'm doing that, I'm going to stick my tungsten out so I can make it past the halfway point when I make this run in here. So I'll just stick it out, take a look. He's got a little bit more, and take another look, and that's golden. So right there we go. I'm going to turn and the last thing I'm going to do is turn my post flow up 13 seconds and crank my CFM up to about 30-35 CFM, because those monster nozzles take a lot of gas to work properly. So I'm going to set this like this, back up so you can see a little better, and I'm going to take my 1/16 tungsten, and I'm going to work it from this side, and we'll work my torch from this side, and what I'm going to do when I make this run is I'm going to start out on the far corner towards the outside, and I'm just going to take my tungsten and my filler, I'm just going to work it, almost like I'm doing a weave, and I'm just going to work it as far as I can to the center, and then I'm going to back off a little bit, and I'm going to wash it back, and I'm just going to walk it all the way back out to the front again, and then I'm just going to hold there on post flow, cover it while it cools down, flip around, do the other side. So we'll do that right now. Okay, and that's, like I said, that's the first half. By just going in there, starting at the front, washing it back and forth like I'm doing a weave. And you know what? If you get uncomfortable, just stop. Don't let yourself get uncomfortable. You got to control that tungsten. You don't want it crashing into stuff. And so here's what we got, and hopefully you can see that. But we went past the halfway point there, and I'm just going to flip it around and do the same thing on the other side. Alright, so that was the hard part, which is getting the runners in between those two guys. And so there you go. You know, not that hard. Just like I said, just making that weave pass in there, throwing filler in when you need it, washing that bead in, really making it a lot of heat in there, get to the bottom of that joint. So now I'm just going to switch everything back. I'm going to make 8 gasolines, turn the pre-flow and post-flow down, and my argon down. And I'm just going to finish up running this bead around the outside, and it'll be ready to finish it off. Okay, we're back, and like I said, I set this in water and just let it cool for like 10 minutes, and it's the box, you know, cool to the touch, and everything's nice and good comfort for handling, good temperature for handling it. So I'm gonna go ahead and break this free, and we'll take a look at what we got. All right, so yeah, it's got good lineup. I'm not going to pretend like these are perfect. They tend to usually need a little bit of cleanup afterwards. Go in there with a die grinder and radius the corners a little bit, and that's usually all it takes. But it's pretty good fit up. It's a lot better than some of the stuff I've seen, and you know, maybe not as good as some of the stuff. Who knows? But that's it. You see, we got down the center there, we got the beads going, you know, all the way around, nice thick build beads, so you got plenty of meat to dig into if you had to. Good penetration, we reached, you know, all the way through, and that's about it. So I'm going to go ahead and surface the bottom of this flange on the belt sander just to make sure it's true, and when somebody bolts up their turbo it seals properly, and then I'll run a brush on the inside and do a little bit of port work just to clean up some of them sharper edges, and then I'll run a disc sander around the outside, and it will be good to go. Alright, so here's the finished product, and see, we got a nice nice uniform surface on the back, trued out all around the sealing area, so we're not going to have any trouble with sealing there. And look kind of through the ports there. So what I've done is I've went ahead and taken a little sander and a die grinder and just ported those out so that there's no sharp edges, and it's just nice, smooth. You get a look down, there's no overhangs in there, and that's what you want when you're finished, because on these T4s it's really important, because they're pushing so much gas through there. So if you're running like a big single T4, you're really flowing a lot through there. So any overhangs, ledges, where it's not smooth, is going to make a hot spot, and that's going to heat that up. There's going to be possibility for cracking, and nobody wants that after you put all that time and work into it. So that's it. So make sure you know, spend a little time, you know, porting them out. Make sure you get a good smooth transition. The kit itself, it's relatively inexpensive. I think it's a pretty good value for what you get out of it, and you know, take a little time, have some fun welding it up, and you'll have a good product. So thanks for your support, and thanks for watching Monkey Fab.